Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox and I would like to welcome you to episode 152 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I visit with Rodger Johnson. Rodger is a marketing professional and he walks us through the process of how to set up a marketing campaign using social media. I found that the process is very interesting and some very interesting lessons for the compliance practitioner. The episode comes in at just over 18 minutes. I hope that you will enjoy it. Thank you very much for listening. Hello everybody, this is Tom Fox and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. This week finds me in San Diego for Social Media Marketing World Conference in 2015. I've certainly learned a lot about social media marketing and hopefully can put some of those ideas and tools to use going forward. But the other thing I've been able to do is meet some really interesting people. So today I'm with Rodger Johnson. He has a company called Socially Relevant, and he helps people like myself, professionals or anyone else, with their marketing, but specifically in the social media space. So, Rodger, with that introduction, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
We met at the, they had a really interesting idea, which was they set up tables for people with similar interests. So we had lunch together yesterday at the podcast table. Mm-hmm. So why don't we use that to intro into telling me about what you do and where you do it and how you do it.
All right, well, good, thank you. Well, first of all, I am the head of public relations for Socially Relevant, which is my small company. And I started podcasting primarily through a client of mine called Saxo, and it's an advocacy marketing platform. And so we started a podcast called Advocacy Cast, and what we do is we interview people, professionals in the world that are doing advocacy marketing to bring best practices and tactics and strategies to other businesses so that they can start advocacy programs as well.
So when you say advocacy programs, what do you mean by that?
Well, really what we're looking at is we're looking at taking those, identifying those people who go beyond just being a customer and beyond just being a fan to really being someone who is an evangelist for the company, somebody who stands with the company during a crisis. It's the army of the organization that is really active in promoting the brand in a way that is not only meaningful to them, meaningful to the brand itself, and meaningful to the larger community.
One of the things that you've educated me on is about the process that you go through, and you've talked about someone like myself as a legal professional may have subject matter expertise in my area of the law, but I certainly don't have subject matter expertise in your area of the law, nor oftentimes do many legal professionals have really the time to learn it and implement it. So could you talk about sort of skill set that Socially Relevant brings to a professional such as myself?
Well, one of the things that we do is we start off with research because we really have to understand the client's customers and the people that particular brand is impacting. And that not only includes the customers, that includes stakeholders and other types of people, people in the general community as well. From there, from that research, we can develop messaging, and then from the messaging, we can develop strategies and planning. And from that strategy standpoint, we can develop tactics and attach evaluations and measurement onto the end of that, so that we can go back over the course of over several different campaigns and learn how we're growing your audience, learn how we're connecting with them, learn how we can create deeper connections with them. All to grow your business and to make it stronger in the end.
Well, wow, you really said a lot in there, and let me see if I could put that into my language. I would say that if someone hired me to help them in the area of compliance, I would come in and assess their risks. And from that risk assessment, I would then help devise a strategy to manage that risk, and then I would put in place metrics which would allow me to determine whether that risk management strategy was working and tweak it as necessary. So I'm very interested to hear your process, because it sounds very much like the process that I go through in the legal compliance field.
I think you're right. My process is one where, like I said earlier, I go and I assess the audience. I assess your messaging as well. How does your messaging resonate with the audience? That's a big term. How are they reacting to your message? And I go even further than just awareness for your company, and that's really where advocacy comes in, because advocates are active with your brand in some way, shape, or form, and so we try to find ways where we can activate those people to be more engaged with your brand. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and unfortunately it makes so much sense. Let me give you this example. In the compliance realm, we talk about an employee as a compliance advocate, and that if we have someone like myself, who could be either a chief compliance officer or a compliance professional over a geographic area, and as you drill down into the specific countries, for instance, you would have a compliance advocate who would typically not be a lawyer. They may not even be a compliance professional. It could be just a regular company employee. But my job is to deliver to them the tools that allow them to be an advocate for the company around anti-corruption compliance.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Okay, so now let me take it a step further, because I'm really intrigued by your discussion of advocacy, because I see that in my realm really creating employee advocates is very, very important. But I often struggle with what's the type of information that an advocate needs to truly be an advocate, even if it's an employee inside your company.
So the question is about information. What kind of information that they need to get, right?
Yes.
So you need to give them information that is emotionally charged, that gets them involved. Not only that gets them involved, but helps remove barriers for them so that they can get involved. Because typically what happens in the process of making someone aware to making someone an advocate for your company is that there's barriers along the way. Okay, and so your information has to be able to eliminate those barriers for them, so that it creates kind of a smooth highway, all right, that they can travel onto, and they can and they can engage in your brand that way. So, for an example, one of the things that I do in my company is businesses always want to pitch the media. They want to be in the Wall Street Journal or anything like that. But what I do is I educate them that maybe the Wall Street Journal is not exactly where they want to be. All right, that maybe they want to be in, let's say, the Cooperative Business Journal of America, which is way unsexy compared to the Wall Street Journal. But the Cooperative Business Journal is absolutely where a financial planner needs to be if he's doing financial planning for a small business. All right, and so what happened? And this is a real story. So what happened is when I was working
case studies, I love them.
Yeah, it is great. So what happened with this client is I started just pitching the media about, or pitching this particular media about the company, and my client, the CEO, kind of got a little squeamish about that. But when I sat down with him and I educated him about what a pitch is, or because he thought I was selling something, I'm like, what a pitch is, what a press release was, why I was contacting that media when he went away to conferences and stuff like that, then he understood exactly what I was doing. And he didn't have any time to do it himself, but he knew what I was doing. So he said, okay, I know what you're doing now, so go do more of it. And then when the Cooperative Business Journal called him up, they interviewed him. They did a front page cover story on his entire company, or our entire company at the time, and that landed him a contracted agreement with a $16 billion company. All right, $16 billion company that that essentially manages several different vertical lines of closely held businesses in the niche that we wanted to operate in.
So it sounded like to me that you assess the need, or perhaps the better phrase might be you assess the opportunity,
right,
and then put in a not only strategic plan to capture that opportunity, but the tactical specific techniques that you needed to do as well.
Right, absolutely. And then in that process, I educated my CEO at the time, and so that's a little bit messy. And so what I do now, and what I tell professionals to do now, is to educate first. All right, that removes the barriers, and then research, plan, strategize, and engage second. Because if a client knows, or prospect understands what you do and understands how you work, they're more likely to engage with you if that's the way they work and they understand things, and they feel comfortable about that relationship with you.
In my world, that sounds like to me establishing trust.
Yeah. That's establishing trust right there, and a very deep relationship.
Now, after you've established the relationship, how do you make the step towards, or the leap across to delivering the content?
Well, that really comes through a comprehensive communication plan. And so what we do is we take the research, we take the strategy, we take the planning, tactical suggestions, and even how we're going to measure what we're doing out in media and social media and online, and we package it into a document. And this is a living document too. It's something that at the end of every campaign cycle we go back and we revisit. And we say, okay, if X tactic isn't working, and the data says this isn't working, then we know to scrap X tactic and try something else, because maybe something else might work more, and maybe the new research, the new data shows that a new tactic will work, and then so we implement that, we iterate, and we evolve over time with the client.
And drawing back to my experience again, once again, in my world, it's called a risk assessment, but we're mandated that a minimum every 2 years, but realistically every year, you need to go back and update your risk assessment to determine if what you put in place is working, but also to see if there's something new that's out there that you can implement as well. Is that something that you would think about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, campaign cycles, and it really kind of depends on the client, but typically my campaign cycle with the financial firm was about every 6 weeks. So we would run the campaign 6 weeks, and then we would start doing some measurement, and then if we saw, let's say, a particular media outlet was not working, but something else was working, then we would scrap the other thing and we would add the new thing, which is exactly what you do, except it looks like you're doing it on a much longer lead time, and ours is a lot shorter.
Now, I'd like to focus on the specific, what I would call subject matter expertise. You might call it content, but do you have to work with your clients to tailor the content that you would push out, or is it simply, they know what they do the best, they know what they love the best, and you just kind of let them loose? How does that part of it work?
Well, we really have to work with the client to tailor their content to their customers and to their audience, because take something as complex as valuating a business. All right, so the average business owner doesn't know all of the intricacies of valuating a business. All right, but he does know the value of that. All right. And so what we do is that a subject matter expert, like a financial planner or something like that, doesn't need to write copious amounts of information about the deep intricacies, the granular stuff of what a valuation is. But what the business owner needs to know what he's going to get from that. And so what we do is we help the client create those value-laden types of documents, just like the case study I just talked about a second ago, to help them understand that. And so we work with them very closely.
Let me turn now to the experiences you've had here at the conference. Have there been any panels that have stood out to you, or really any even pithy insights that you've gotten that you could use?
Well, pithy insights. There's a really good pithy insight that I just got from Brian Clark, who is the copy blogger guru, and then started that entire empire. And what he said is, he goes, when you're out online and you're creating content online, on your website, he said, don't think like a marketer, think about media properties. All right, think about media properties. Or another way of thinking about it is think about being a publisher. Because if you're a publisher, you tend to have more clout. I'm going to read something from Random House, and maybe not something from Joe Schmo on the, down the block from me. So you really have to have that publisher mentality. The other thing that I found that was pretty cool was that when you are creating content, relevancy has a deadline. So that means that not only does your content that you're producing need to be timely, but that timeliness is relevant. So, for an example, I was working with a client not long ago, and he published a book about presidential qualifications. Okay, which was fascinating and
very timely.
Yeah, very timely, and it was even more timely and relevant because I was publicizing that book during the 2012 presidential run, and so we had a few people running for the White House then,
right,
and a couple of them clearly did not have the qualifications to run for that office or to hold that job, and so we created relevant content around those candidates that did not have the qualifications to showcase the book and to showcase its value to people, to educate them about the presidential process and about really what that job's all about.
Right.
And the really fascinating thing about that was because it was relevant and it was to deadline, and it was timely, media coverage for that book exploded in our first iteration of the campaign. It was fantastic.
What excellent timing, and it's still relevant today, even as we speak this week.
It's still relevant today. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm no longer working with that client, but we still have a good relationship. And when Ted Cruz decided to,
that's Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. For those of you who don't know,
Senator Ted Cruz. When he decided to announce his candidacy for president. My client called up. He goes, "Are you ready to go again?" And I said, "Absolutely, if you want to."
Well, Rodger, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I was wondering if anyone wanted to get in touch with you or go to your website. Could you give us your website? And if they wanted to get in touch with you, how might they do so?
Well, you can get in touch with me by visiting my website at www.sociallyrelevant.us, or you can reach me on Twitter at SoSheRelevant, and you can also email me if you want to. It's Rodger, Rodger, at sociallyrelevant.us, and I'd be glad to talk to you.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time from your schedule to visit with me today. I think we both learned a lot here at this conference, and I've certainly learned a lot listening to you over the last couple of days. Thank you.
Sure.